Well, this is an old Underwood portable typewriter. Now, back when it was made in the 30s, it was a marvel of innovation and technology. 80 years later, it's been upgraded. It's been moved from paper to iPad. Now, while this example is fun to look at, it's expensive and it's not very functional. And I find the metaphors instructive because so often that's how we've applied technology to education. And I think technology can do more than that in the future. Education has two large problems: access and effectiveness. And if you're fortunate enough to be in a great school, then you're fine. But many of the people in the US and the world don't have access to effective education. And I think technology can help more than it has in the past. And so today I want to share a way to leverage technology in education to make it more accessible and more effective. And it's not just about technology, it's about people. Although I'm not a professional educator, I'm a technologist with a passion for education because I've experienced the change that it can make in your life firsthand. Back when I was 15, I was introduced to computers by a wonderful math teacher named Mr. Parker. No relation, but Mr. Parker pulled me out of his Algebra 2 class because he saw I was bored. And he set me in front of a new computer the school had received that no one knew how to run. It was a Litton desktop computer. And he said, "Ken, make it do something interesting." Well, my love affair with computers was launched. I went on to go get two degrees. I'm a first-generation college graduate in my family. But I went on to go get 2 degrees in computer science, worked in aerospace for 10 years, financial technology for 6 years, and then for the next 12 years had a wonderful experience co-founding and building a financial technology company called RiskMetrics Group. We grew from 25 to 1,200, and then we sold it for a handsome profit 18 months ago. And so I know firsthand the change and the importance, the opportunity that education can make in your life. And as a technologist, as we set off on a next great adventure, I'd like to think about how to use technology to give that gift to others. And I know we can do better than bolting on iPads onto typewriters. So I want to share 3 thoughts with you today. First, community enriches education in powerful and proven ways. Second, technology connects people on a massive scale. And thirdly, if we use technology to connect community and education together, then we can make education more accessible and more available. So first, community and education. Well, there have been a lot of research and results that talk about the value and the benefits of community and education. Don't people always look happy in stock photos? One of my favorite studies about community and education was done back in the 70s by Yuri Treisman. He was a teacher of the first semester calculus course at UC Berkeley in California. And he noticed this disturbing trend that there was always a high-performing group, and then there was this large, persistent, low-performing group. They had failure rates of 40%. Now, these kids were all smart. They had gotten accepted into Berkeley, and yet there were very different outcomes. So being a great teacher, he wanted to get to the bottom of that. And so he conducted a study. It turned out to be a hard problem because it wasn't any of the things they suspected, like motivation or work or socioeconomic background or parental involvement. But it turned out the difference was community. And here's what they found. They even had moved into the dorms with the students so they could study closely what they were doing. What they found was the low-performing students seemed to be doing everything right. they'd get up, they'd go to class, they'd take notes, they'd do their homework religiously. But they did it alone. They'd work in their dorm or the library alone. By contrast, the high-performing students, they would form social groups with an academic focus, and so they'd study together. If they got stuck, they'd contribute their efforts and they'd solve the problem together. So if one of them figured it out, they all figured it out. And so the difference in performance was community. So Treisman set up, again, being a good researcher now, set up a intervention to help. He created something called the Mathematics Workshop Program. And it was just a small group of students that would get together in smaller groups, and they'd work on the problems together. And let's look at the results. Students that participated in the workshops, compared to those that didn't, 2.5 times more likely to get a B- or above. But the biggie was the failure rate plummeted from 40% down to 3%, and it was just due to community. So that's a form of community and learning called collaborative learning. You're working together on a problem in a group, you have a shared objective, but you bring your diverse skills together to solve the problem, and you end up with higher motivation and a lot of other factors that make it a much more effective experience. Another type of community and learning is something called active learning. Same kind of principle, you're working together, you're engaging with the material, engaging with other students, but it increases your motivation, you have better retention, and again, you learn from others. Peer-to-peer support is another type of community and learning, and this is basically students teaching other students. It takes many different forms, tutoring, teaching, study groups, but the key part here is it's infinitely scalable. No matter how big this whole group, or you could have thousands of people, you can still split down into small groups to work together. And then Seneca, the Roman philosopher, captured it well 2,000 years ago. It's a win-win situation. And he said, while we teach, we learn. And then one final example, there are many different types of community learning. These are just a few. But one final example is one-to-one tutoring. This is where you have a student and a tutor, a teacher, working together. So it's a small community of two. But there was phenomenal research that the highly respected researcher Benjamin Bloom did back in the early 80s. And he showed that the average tutored student performed better than 98% of the students in the traditional class. So it's an outstanding performance difference, and it all had to do just with community. So community is something that students and teachers can use. Don't need computers or technology or anything else, but they can use it to great effect. So secondly, technology connects people. Let me ask you a question. What's the top online web destination in the US in terms of time spent? Facebook, exactly. By a factor of 3. And this is in the month of May last year, 53.5 billion minutes were spent on Facebook. And what is Facebook? It's just a way to connect people across time and space. Facebook this month has 800 million users. They're on track to hit 1 billion users this summer. That's 1/7 of the world's living humans. Facebook's not happy with the growth. The rumor has it that they're digging deeper. They're actually building a module to channel dead people. It's going to... Okay, so I made that part up, but the rest of it's true. But it did make you think, didn't it? Well, it's not just a US phenomenon. In fact, we're 13th in terms of how much time we spend online per capita on social media. Israel was first. They were twice as much time as the US. Second, Nielsen did a study where they looked at 10 different global regions. They found the same thing was true. All 10 global markets, the top online web destination was social media and blogs. And it wasn't Facebook outside the US. So I'm not saying that Facebook and social media is the solution to education. In fact, a lot of teachers would say it's a distraction from learning. But what I am saying is that technology is connecting people in massive, powerful ways on a global scale. And it's changing how humans interact with each other and how we maintain relationships. So thirdly, how do we use technology to connect community to education? Well, all of us have seen the new ebooks that are coming out, and believe me, those are on the way as a new way to deliver media. Even the cool new graphic art and other media that you see coming out, ebooks are going to do that. But one thing you don't see as much yet is the rich community plugged into that media. And so that's something our group has been working on recently. And so let me show you some of the ideas that we're working on. So we have two hypothetical students, Jessica on the left with her iPad and Susie on the right with her laptop. And they're actually working on their math homework. Could be any type of homework. Jessica starts out on her iPad and she ran into a question. So instead of getting stuck, she creates a note, drags it up and shares it with her study buddies. Now we'll switch over to Jessica's laptop. You'll see the note pops up in the same place in her math book. And so the study group actually starts a live chat. They don't have to be in the same room anymore. They can be anywhere. And so Susie's actually the expert, so she starts drawing a response that answers, well, why is this a right angle? So back from Jessica's perspective, she has someone that's responding back to her. They're having a dialogue. Does this make sense? Oh, yes, that makes a lot of sense now. Demos are always happy. And you have a conversation. Imagine the contrast with a paper book where you're sitting there in the library or in your dorm and you're stuck by yourself. So now we've integrated that experience into one textbook type of an experience. So let's look at some other ways that innovation can bring community into education. Well, we've seen that Facebook and many other social media sites demonstrate the power to create communities. And let's look at it a little more carefully. The communities can be any size, shape, location, any special interest group, and you're building your personal learning network as a student. And it is very personal, just like a fingerprint, because it evolves over time, but it belongs just to you. No two people have the same Facebook map, do they? Secondly, technology lets you interact in the most effective way for you for that task. And you get to choose. Do you want to do it in person? Do you want to do message, live chat, audio, video? Or maybe you just want to work alone. That's still possible. But you have all these different choices. Ask an introvert if they would rather raise their hand in class or send in a text message to give a response. There's an information tsunami that is overtaking us. IDC and EMC report that every 2 years, the total information in humanity doubles. So exponential growth is what we're seeing in information. The best programmers I know, for instance, don't even buy books anymore. They plug into blogs and online communities to learn and to stay current. The community's generating all the content, and it's all available online. And so we need ways to access it and to find what we need. Everything's easy to look up now. Einstein famously said, "I never commit to memory anything I can look up in a book." Well, it's even easier to look it up now. If you want to know something, there's a new verb, you Google it. And so we need to use our communities and the efforts and the intellect of others to sift through this information tsunami to get to what we need. This one's perhaps nearest and dearest to my heart. Technology can help scale up great teachers. Did you hear about the AI course that 2 Stanford professors offered last semester? It was their standard artificial intelligence course that students can take on site. Normally it costs $57,000 per year to attend Stanford. They offered it online for free. Let's look at the results. Normally they have 200 people in that class. They had 160,000 people enroll. Now, they did have a lot of drops through the class, because it was the real class. Ended up 23,000 people graduated completed the class. And Professor Thrun, the main organizer, he said that's more students completing an AI course than the whole rest of the world's AI teachers put together. The community translated it into 40 different languages so that people could participate in 190 different countries. There were 248 perfect scores. That was homework, quizzes, and tests. Of the 248, 0 were the on-site students. They were all off-site. The one I found interesting, though, was the fact that the normal class of 200, Professor Thrun said it diminished to about 30 by the end of the semester, because he said students reported they preferred to watch the lectures online because they were more interested, they found them more interesting, and they felt like it was a more intimate environment. So go figure. But the power there is that we can scale up great teachers, but it'll never replace great teachers. Technology allows you to multiply their efforts. Professor Thrun actually this week resigned his tenured position at Stanford, and he's leaving to go do an educational startup to offer more free education online. The reason he gave for doing it was profound. He said, in that one class, I had a greater educational impact than I would have my entire career. And I want to do more of that. And the reason I find this powerful is because of those 23,000 students, how many of them would have otherwise had access to that kind of quality experience? There were single mothers in tough domestic situations. There were survivors in war-torn Afghanistan taking that class. So that brings us to the next point that technology does for you. It increases access. This is a graphic that came from the BBC that shows how over the past 14 years, how internet is basically, the world is coming online. In the last 5 years, the number of people online on the internet has doubled from 1 billion to well over 2 billion now. 35% of the world's population is now online. So those are some of the ways that technology can connect community into education. So in summary, community enriches education profoundly, and it's proven. Technology connects people on a massive global scale. And if we use technology to connect community and education, then we can make education more accessible and more effective. So whether you're a student, a teacher, an administrator, parent, or a citizen, imagine with me some of the very real possibilities for the future of education. Imagine asking your book a question and your community answers you. Imagine students helping other students and the unlimited scaling that that provides. Imagine billions of connected minds solving problems and learning together. And then one of my personal dreams, imagine access to great teachers and an engaged community that's available for everyone. So I would encourage you, let's explore and experiment. And as Mr. Parker told me years ago, make it do something interesting. In the end, education is about people. Digital tools will come and go, but the common denominator is still people, and it always will be. So if we do use technology to connect people in community for education, the results will astound.